In the previous chapter, you've learned how to navigate around Notch. Now it's time to start using the tool, and we'll start by adding effects to video. In this chapter, we will be building both simple and more advanced post-effect processing chains. We will learn how to stack multiple effects on top of each other and change their properties. This chapter features multiple workshops where I ask you to follow along with the video and repeat what I'm doing to learn for yourself. Feel free to pause or rewind the video if you need to. Hello and welcome to a video compositing chapter of this course. Please make sure to load 02 chapter video compositing and post effects to get started. Alright, just before we get into video compositing, let's make sure our resources are in good order. I see that mine are lit up red, stating they fail to load. So this means that the path to the linked file is broken. We can re-establish that. All I have to do is in the resource browser, right-click and go for Find Missing Resources. Once I do that, I get a list of what's missing, and I can press on these three little dots to navigate and find the right location for the files. In this case, will be My Desktop, Essential Course, Assets, Video. Now, this folder appears to be empty, but in reality, it's definitely not. So if I go to the Windows file structure and navigate to the very same folder, I will see that it's populated with videos. So what we're doing here is just referencing their location. So I'm gonna hit Select Folder. Okay, and I see that all of my videos are now ready for use. So before we bring in any resource to the node graph, let's discuss two ways we can actually output that on our screen. We can use Image2D. So this option right here allows us to use the whole available canvas, and it's straight up 2D compositing option. And another option we have is Image Plane. Now Image Plane lives in 3D space, so if you're making a 3D scene that would benefit of having a video file running as a foreground or background, this is the choice you would go for. For the current workshop, we will stick with the Image2D. So I'm deleting the Image Plane and a couple of comments around it. So Image2D fills the available space with the white canvas, and it will serve as a output option for our videos. So let's just grab one of those from the list. I'm gonna go for base.move. Once I drag it in, it comes in as a video loader. And now I can grab this video loader and output it via Image2D. So if I grab the output of the video loader, you will see that the plausible hookup points lights up. That's true throughout Notch system. If you grab an output of the node, the plausible hookup points will light up in other nodes. So in this case, we have three options. First will be video node, then it will be alpha image and a UV remap image. In this case, we want video node. So I'm just piping into the first input here, video node. And here we are. As soon as we hit space, we are playing back a video file in Notch. That's great. Now, before we start adding any post effects, I want to highlight one very specific and handy property in the video loader. Here we have a video bracket and it's a dropdown. So via this dropdown, you can call out any other video that you have in the resources. So there is no need to bring in another video file and rehook it if you want to change the input. So in this case, I can just choose, let's say, test feed or the band, or just come back to the base. This becomes very handy when you're working on a visual treatment and you need to quickly swap out the input or the video file that you're using. Right, so let's make this a little bit more interesting. Let's add a couple of post effects. If we go to the post effects tab, you will notice that there's a lot for us to choose, and knowing exactly how all of these post effects looks is a little bit of a tall order, especially when you're just getting started. So here is a handy tip. If you hover over any of these post effects, you will notice that there's two icons, the favoring it and the question mark. So what does the question mark do? Well, it brings you directly to the manual and it shows exactly how this post effect looks and explains a little bit on how it's to be used and what does it do. So if I come back now to the post effects bracket in the manual, I can see that every single post effect that we have in Notch is here shown with a little thumbnail, and if you click on it, there is a write-up on how to go about using it. Super, super handy. I find myself using this quite a lot. Specifically, I'm not sure exactly how does the post effect looks. Now, you can call out manual from the node list, and of course, you can do the very same thing directly from the node grab by pressing on any of the nodes. Okay, so with that said, let's add a couple of post effects. I think I will start with the glow. I'm connecting it to the root. Yep, I see it's working. And I think it's a little bit aggressive. So I'm going to increase the threshold to reduce the amount of glow. There we go. All of the post effects has a variety of options for you to choose from. Now, most of them, I would say, have blend amount and blend modes. Now, those are extremely handy. I find myself using them all the time. Okay, let's add one more. How about some edge detect? Great. I'm adding that and connecting it to the root. Now, here's an important moment. Notch recognizes stacking order from top to bottom and from left to right. So depending on where you add your post effects, it will affect the way your scene looks. And that's true throughout the whole system. If you're working with particles, stacking effectors will make a difference. And if you're working with post effects, as we are now, that too makes a difference. The stacking order, so top to bottom or left to right. I like to stack mine top to bottom, but that doesn't mean you should follow that. Just do it as you please. The edge detect, let's just make some changes here. I think here is where I want to change the blend mode. So I'm going to go for something different here. Yeah, maybe screen. I could even probably give it a color. Let's see if that makes a difference. Yeah, this is a little bit more fun. But then I guess screen doesn't work for us. Additive, that could be it. I'll stick with that. Let's add one more post effect here. I think I'm going to put it in between glow and edge detect. I'm going to go for color correction. Notice some of the nodes has same naming conventions. However, they are in different brackets and they have different icons. So in this case, we are after the post effect color correction. So I'll grab that and connect it to the root. And what I want to do now, I just want everything to be desaturated. Perhaps I'll increase the contrast and reduce the brightness. There we go. That's starting to look like a design. Right, maybe one more post effect just for fun. Maybe something a bit more visually aggressive. Perhaps some glitch. I'm gonna go for Chroma Glitch. There we go. And I'll add it as a last post effect here in this chain. So I'm pressing Ctrl R. And it's definitely working. Perhaps the color channel mode could be no split. And I'm gonna tick on hold glitch frames. Yeah, all right, I'm quite happy with this. What happens if I just start to mess about and change the position of the Chroma Glitch? Yeah, that definitely makes a difference in design. So it's up to you how you want to stack it. If you feel like experimenting, do spend a minute trying out different post effects. Like I mentioned, you can always double check how they look and what they do by visiting Notch manual. And once you're ready, let's just move on to the advanced compositing. Okay, let's talk about more advanced compositing now. First of all, I'm going to show you more or less where we're headed. So the composition number 3 here. This is more or less what we're after. This is rather bigger node graph, but we will get through all of these nodes in no time, and we will build this together. As you see, I can pick and choose any composition I want to load. All I have to do is just press on the name of the composition. So I've left you a couple of examples here of what you can build out with Notch by just using post effects. Okay, so this is a good time to just create a new composition. So I'm pressing on new composition and I've gotten a new layer, a new comp ready for me to work with. So obviously to get started, we will need an output. So I'm going to use the very same image 2D. And I'm connecting that to the root. Great. And I will need a video file. In this case, I'm going to use the very same base. So of course, I could connect the base directly to the first input image 2D as we did before. But in this case, I will go a little bit different way. I want to build out an effect that would have a black and white background, and let's say foreground would be red lines consisting of dots. So how can I achieve that a little bit more complex look or a little bit more complex chain of processing? Well, I can use video nulls. So if I type in null, there's, as you see, quite a few options for us available, but we want the video null. So I'm going to grab that and I will connect the loader to the video null. If I press shift and double click, I can actually preview how that specific video null or video loader looks. So this will be very handy for us now. Okay, I'm gonna grab another video null. And I will connect it to the same video loader. Shift double click. And now I want to start to apply post effects. So what we tried so far is applying post effects directly on the root. We can actually apply post effects directly on the loaders and nulls. So I'm gonna go for color correction. And mind you, some of the nodes has same naming convention, even though they live in different categories. So in this case, we have post effect color correction and we have shading color correction. We want the first one, post effect color correction. So I will grab this color correction and I will connect it to the video loader. So if I set the saturation now to 0, you will notice that black and white pass or desaturated picture follows through to the video nulls as well. So basically I'm affecting the whole chain. And if I grab the very same color correction and connect it to one of the nulls, only that specific null, only that iteration became black and white. And that's exactly what I'm after. I want to split out the rendering chain, do something with the background and then something completely else with the foreground in this case. So I'll leave it at black and white. That's great. And I'll add another post effect, for instance, edge detect. And I will use it here on the second video null. So this edge detect, as I mentioned, probably should be red. And I want one more post effect here, dot matrix, because I want this to be expressed as little dots. So I appreciate that it's really hard to read and see what's going on here. Every single loader and a null can be previewed in a viewport, and you have several options for that. So should it be RGB? Or perhaps pip in mode. In this case, RGB works great for us. You get a little reminder that you're in a preview mode right here. So if you click it off, the preview is gone. Another telltale is this green icon. So if it's lit up, that means you're in a preview mode of that specific node. So the dot matrix, I believe those dots should be a little bit bigger. And the edge detect, can we do something about this node being a little bit more readable? So if I reduce the threshold, that helps. Can I increase the scale? Yes, I can. I'm holding Alt to exceed the arbitrary boundaries from 0 to 10. And that's why I can just slide it in a little bit further. So this looks good. I think this will work. So I will click off the previewing. And my next task is to put these two video nulls together to one composite. And I can do that with a node called Composite Sources. So I'll drag that in. And you will notice that this node has two inputs, to Composite Sources and Composite Source. So what's the difference between those two? So the left one is the driver. And the bottom one is the one that follows whatever the driver says. If the left input is 4K, the bottom input will be upscaled to 4K. Same with the frame rate, so on and so forward. So basically this sets the basic parameters, this follows those parameters. So before we make any changes to Composite Sources, we can actually use that as an output for image 2D. So we can properly see it here in our viewport. Now we established a link from the video loader to two nulls that have separate treatments. We're putting them together through Composite and we are outputting that with the image 2D. So let's focus a little bit on the Composite Sources. First of all, it allows us to blend from one to another. So either from the left or the bottom. Now in this case, we don't want to see one or the other. We actually want to see them both. So in the blend mode, instead of Composite, I will choose Add. All of a sudden, I see both of these nulls working together at once. Now, I would probably want to do something a little bit more fun with this background. Let's try something like frame a difference and connect it here connected here to this video null. There we go. Things got a little bit more interesting. So if I preview this specific video null, I can tweak the frame difference a little bit more. I think in this case, I want 25 frames. Yeah, that gives a little bit more prominent look. So I'm going to stop the preview and I will focus a little bit more on this video null. So let's preview that. I don't think this has enough detail. So let's just see if I can tweak this a little bit more. maybe the dot matrix shouldn't be just in color, maybe color and scale. Nope, that doesn't help us. Let's stick with color, but maybe they should be smaller. So as I increase resolution, the dots becomes a little bit smaller. Yeah, I kind of like that. So I'm going to stop the preview. I can do that here, or I can click on the null and set it to off. And now it starts to look like something. So I'm quite happy with this. However, in general, this effect is very hard to read. It would make do with a little bit more detail from the original file. It would just make it easier to read. Now, we just discussed how to put different chains together with the composite sources, but that of course is not the only way you can do that. Image 2D in itself has blend modes, so we can take advantage of that. I'm gonna add another image 2D to the scene, connect it to the root, and as you see, the white quad now is overwriting the whole viewport, and that is because, again, stacking order comes into play. So depending on where it is in the stacking order, is either behind or in front of the original design we've created. And we want it here in the bottom, so it overwrites things. So we could grab the video loader and connect it directly to the video node, or we can use a video null and pipe things through video null. Now, I usually just add a video null, because during the process of designing, I might want some specific post effect introduced to this chain as well. So it's just good to have that extra hookup point for post effects. So as mentioned in the image 2D, now we can choose another blend mode. So instead of blend, maybe let's start with additive. I would say we can just cycle through and choose other options too. Max looks good. Screen too, but I think I'm just gonna stay with additive. So here we now have that little extra bit of detail, and that's great. But we can push this a little bit further and add one more technique here. We can use a matte pass to drive visibility of some other design on top of it all. So in order to do that, we need yet another image 2D. So I'm going to add that. I will connect it to the root. I again will need a video null. And I will do exactly what we did here beforehand. So now we have a new pass. Let's make this aggressively visible for now, and then we're going to tweak the design of it later. I'm going to use post effect tint here, and I'm going to color this all red. And now I want to use black and white pass of sorts, driving the visibility. So we could see through this newly set red filter and see the actual design we've created previously popping through. So I can do that, of course, by using another video. For instance, well, let's try this one, test feed. And I would connect it to the second input, alpha image. And it's working, but it's definitely hard to read. It's not that easy to see what's going on. So instead of that, I would suggest maybe we use something like a generator. And we have abundance of those available here for us. So why don't we grab something like a Fractal Noise? Now, mind you, again, we have quite a few fractal noises inside of Notch. So the one we are after is Generator's Fractal Noise. So I'm going to shape this a little bit. So I'm going to press RGB, and I'm going to make sure that, first of all, it is 1920 by 1080. And it's a little bit more aggressive. So maybe something like that. So I'm going to increase the threshold. Now I can use this fractal noise to drive the visibility. There we go. So as you see, there you go. Now this is definitely popping through. Now this is not necessarily the design that I'm after, so I think I will reduce the alpha and I will take out the tint and I will focus on this null. So I'm going to press RGB. I just want some small little detail to overlay everything else. So how about some Kuwahara filter here? Can I increase the number of numbers here in the radius? That looks kind of nice. Good. So let's tick off the preview. There we go. So now we have that little extra pass on top, giving a little bit different look, a little bit different vibe. So we've tried adding post effects to the nulls. We of course add it to the composite sources and the actual root as well. How about we add something to the composite sources here, just for the fun of it? I'm gonna go for something aggressive, maybe motion Datamosh. I'm connecting it to the composite sources. Yes, I see it's working. I might want to make some tweaks here. So in motion Datamosh, I am going to tick on use scene motion vectors. And perhaps change the blend mode. Yeah, something like screen actually works quite well for me. So this is becoming quite readable, but still reasonably abstract. Cool. Another thing I can try is LUTs. And I have already preloaded several of those, but if you head to your resources, so in my case, it's desktop, essential course, assets, LUTs, there are several more available for you. So LUTs is a industry standard way of grading a video, and you can find abundance of those available online. There are a lot of people sharing them and selling them. So with that said, I'm just gonna grab the first one available for me here, and I'll just connect it to the root. There we go. It's definitely working. And just like with the video, where you don't necessarily have to swap out the video to be able to preview or work with another source, I can do the very same thing with the LUT. So if I mark up the LUT and there's a cube LUT, I can actually toggle through and choose the LUT that works best for me in this scenario. This one is quite nice. Hefe. Expro is quite cool too. I mean, there's abundance of choices. You have to pick and choose whichever the one you feel works best for you. I'm gonna stick with 002 cube. Maybe I'll reduce the blend amount a little bit. And that kind of wraps up the advanced compositing. So what we've discussed here is how to use a video source and split it into different chains by using video nulls and then bring it back together with the composite sources. And then we spoke about how to take advantage of the blend modes in the image 2D, because that's just another way of compositing things. And then we briefly looked into matte workflows, where a black and white pass of your choice is driving visibility of the video pass you want to use as an overlay. So I will stop messing about with video processing here. Feel free to play around and try out different post effects and see how they stack and create your own crazy and fun designs. And whenever you're ready, let's see each other in the next chapter, where we will talk more about rendering, lights, and materials. So we will delve into the 3D world. See you there.